Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah waliyihi wa salatu ala nabiyhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi al-muta'addibina bi adabih. Amma ba'du. All praise and glory and honor belongs to Allah Ta'ala. Endless peace, blessings upon our noble messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions, his family, his wives. Allah Ta'ala raise ranks especially of all the shuhada of Islam, in particular shuhada Karbala, in particular Sayyiduna Imam Hassan and Sayyidina Imam Husayn radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, whose muhabba, whose love, whose honor, whose respect is ayn iman, is the essence of faith. And the sacrifice of Husayn is not just a sacrifice which he did in Karbala, but is the sacrifice of everything he gave for the sake of the deen of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So those pristine teachings can reach me and you today, that Husayn did not bow, did not succumb to the oppression and transgression of his time. When he saw the Yazid of his time, he did not give his hand. His head was given in martyrdom. And Husayn, he gave his health, his wealth, his children, and ultimately his life for the deen of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what we ought to remember importantly is that when Husayn gave his life in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Husayn was praying salah. Husayn's head was in sajda. Husayn followed the sunnah of his grandfather sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So Husayniyat is not just something which we talk about in the first 10 days of Muharram. It's not about beating yourselves, ripping your clothes or wailing. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned, "Laysa minna man daraba al-khudud wa shaqqa al-juyub wa da'a bi da'wa al-jahiliyya." That person is not from us who beats his cheeks, rips his clothes, and wails like the wailing of the ignorance. But the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his grandson radiyallahu anhu gave us the dars of sabr was salah. That you show patience and that you establish the salah. And this is why even in the final moments of his blessed life, when even the flowers of the garden of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one by one were being martyred in the way of Allah, Imam Husayn showed istiqamat. He was steadfast, he was firm, he had sabr, and he had shukr in the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why should we cry and mourn over Husayn? Why should we cry and do matam over Husayn? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us, He tells us clearly in the Holy Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal informs us, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. Do not say about those who are slain in the way of Allah that they are dead. Rather they are alive, but you do not understand. And then he mentions again in the maqam Allah Azza wa Jalla, when he says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, do not even think about them as dead. Those who are slain in the way of Allah, let alone calling them dead, don't even think of them as dead. But they are alive and their rizq is with their Lord. This is maqam of shahadat, that the shuhada are alive. Husayn is alive. Matam to murde ki hoti hai, Husayn to zinda hai. Husayn is alive in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds. And most importantly, we must take Husayn's mission forward. And the mission of his beloved grandfather sallallahu alaihi wasallam forward. And that mission can only be taken forward by the scholars of Islam, primarily in learning and teaching. That the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam famously mentioned, al-ulama'u warasatul anbiya, that the scholars of the religion are the inheritors of the prophets who did not leave behind gold and silver, they did not leave behind wealth of the dunya, but they left behind the treasure of knowledge. And that treasure of knowledge has been inherited by the scholars of Islam, the righteous callers towards Ahlul Sunnah. And this is why we must cling to them. And I send a message especially to the youngsters here today, that my dear youngsters, Islam is being attacked today. Islam is being attacked from within and from without, from outside external enemies and internal enemies. And there is a need, a dire need in this time for young brothers and young sisters as well to come forward and study this religion and defend the teachings of Islam and defend the teachings of Ahlul Sunnah. And I request you especially, dear youngsters, ulama like these are gems in our time. Qibla Mufti Sahib, their brother, and other shuyukh as well, who are doing the work of Ahlul Sunnah. Cling to them and learn from them today, because tomorrow there will be greater need in times of fitna and confusion. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our attendance here, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to act upon what has been said. Any goodness is from Allah, any weaknesses are from myself. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ.